everyone, welcome back to another week on the Brush by Brandy YouTube channel. This week we are working on this piece behind me, which is beautiful. We're going for kind of a boho look. I'm going to blend some pinks into some beiges and browns. It's going to be very earthy, very neutral, but beautiful. The blend on this one is spectacular. Wait till you see it all together. We're going to do some raised stencil detailing, and I'm so excited to show you this one. So stick around. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Click that subscribe button, and let's go ahead and get started. Here's where I started on this piece. It's got a nice flat front that's perfect for adding some interest to. So this piece is made of mahogany, and it's 100% going to be a bleeder. Anytime I see this dark rich wood, the other dead giveaway for being a bleeder is this hardware. I don't think I've ever seen a piece with this hardware that is not going to bleed through my paint. So that is your other dead giveaway. Unless it's a modern piece made in this, your vintage pieces with Heppel white pulls, they're definitely going to bleed. So I'm going to lay on 2 coats on this piece. I like to load up my brush nice and heavy. And then what I do is I'm going to brush on long, even strokes. I'm not going to try to go all the way across my piece. I'm going to work just in stripes all the way across. It's a little bit thicker than the paint. I want to make sure I have nice, smooth, even brush strokes because this is the base for my paint colors. And I'm just going to go in long stripes right alongside each other. Make sure that one's nice and smooth, and then I'll move over to the next one right alongside it, just overlapping slightly, but I don't try to keep working over the same area again and again. So you can notice how I'm kind of working all across my piece. All right, so I'm gonna let this dry overnight in between coats. I'll come back and put a second coat on this, and then it's gonna be protected and ready for my paint to go on. I'm going for a very bohemian look on this piece, so I want a lot of texture and interest. So on the sides, I'm going to add a raised stencil detail. So I'm going to take my stencil and I applied a little bit of 3M Super 77 spray adhesive to the back side of my stencil, just a very thin layer. And this is going to make my stencil lightly tacky so that I can stick it up onto the side of my piece. Ignore the markings that are underneath my stencil. I was playing with some techniques on the side of this piece and it left some markings in my primer. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking a thin joint compound that I've tinted with a little bit of my paint to make it into a black color, and I'm just going to scrape it over the surface of my stencil using a silicone spatula tool. I try to keep my joint compound as thin and even as possible, just scraping it so it's even with the surface of my stencil. This is going to create a relief in the pattern of my stencil down the side of my furniture piece. When I pull the stencil away, it's going to leave the pattern exposed. The joint compound is very easy to apply, and it's also very easily sandable. Because it sands so easily, when I pull my stencil away, if there's any uneven spots, I just go ahead and give it a light sanding. It will take me a few placements of my stencil. In this case, it took 4 to get all the way from the top to the bottom of each side of this piece. It takes a few placements of the stencil, and I just repeat the process over and over again. When I pull my stencil away, you can see the final detail all the way up the side of this piece. It's absolutely gorgeous. You can even leave it like this and not paint over top, and it's still a really pretty pattern. There's still a few steps I need to take before I go ahead and put paint over this. So I do go ahead and brush over the top lightly with a paintbrush, and then I make sure and I seal my raised stencil with a coat of shellac. And what the shellac does is it creates a barrier so that when I'm brushing over top, it doesn't reactivate the joint compound and start pulling away from my piece. With my raised stencil sealed with a coat of shellac, I can start laying on some paint. I'm using a 4-color blend on this piece, and the first color that I'm starting with is a creamy off-white, and then I'm going to use a light dusty pink around the edges of that. In addition to the pink and the white, my final two colors are going to be a medium brown and a dark brown. I'm going to repeat this same 4-color blend all the way around the 3 sides of my furniture piece. The top I ended up doing in my darkest brown, and then my second coat is going to be a repeat of this same first coat. So let's go ahead and get some blended finishes on this piece. I've got my 4-color blend all the way around all 3 of my sides. It's a beautiful finish. Check out these colors together. I love how the soft pink blends into the browns. I worked these together using a nice full natural bristle brush, and it really brought these colors together. I'm going to be cascading a floral transfer up the side of this piece. Unfortunately, this transfer design is not available to the public. I didn't know that would be the case when I first used it. Unfortunately, some things just don't work out. And so I'm going to give you some floral options that will give you this exact same look in a very similar design. This first option here is from Redesign with Prima. It's got very similar colors in it, very similar florals. This would definitely give you a similar look up the side of this piece. Here's a second option here, and I love the colors in this one. It would be a really dramatic look. This is also by Redesign with Prima, also very similar florals. And one last option, this has very similar peachy tones in it. All 3 of these are going to be linked in the description for this post, so if you want to find any of these options, they would all apply very similarly and look great against these colors that I used in this piece. I cut out each flower individually, and I'm just placing them one by one, cascading down the side of my piece. I'm paying attention and going over the moldings very slowly, wrapping each curve one at a time and just working my way slowly down the transfer. By wrapping the curves, working one curve at a time, I don't try to force my transfer into those low points and cause it to tear. I force it down into there and I wrap it very deliberately so that I don't get tears in my transfer. So let's go ahead and continue applying this transfer, building this up down the side of my piece. It's very organic. It's going to look like a flowing vine down the side of this furniture piece. I did this raised stencil design on the side of this piece, and I'm just getting super light wax on my brush, like barely enough that I even know it's there. I'm even going to lay it off on this rag, and then I'm going to come and I've replaced my stencil over my design, and I'm just going to lightly, very lightly, it doesn't take a lot of wax, a little bit's going to go a long way, especially on the light colors that I used on this piece. And I'm just going to go over and bring out the texture in this raised stencil design. And I'll lift this up in just a second so you guys can see exactly what this does. All right, it's just bringing out the stencil design. So you can see over here where I've done it versus this side where I haven't. So I'm just going to hit the rest of this piece with a little bit of this brown wax to give kind of an antique look to this textured stencil. And then I'll be all done with the sides of this piece. My final step is going to be to spray this piece using 2 coats of clear coat. I am spraying this using a husky gun attached to a compressor. I do have a video on my YouTube channel showing my different sprayers that I like to use. My husband generally sprays my clear coats for me, which I genuinely appreciate. It's a huge help, and he prefers this gun over my others, so I let him have at it. I usually brush my paint finishes because I tend to do very multicolored finishes, but I love to spray my clear coats for the cleanest finish. With my clear coat applied, I add a little bit of gold gilding wax around the moldings for this piece, and I placed my hardware back on, and this piece is done. What do you guys think? It's very bohemian. I hope you guys enjoyed these techniques. I will place links for everything I used in this video and the replacement transfers that I offered as an option in the description for this post. I always appreciate if you use those links to make purchases. I earn a small percentage from those. As always, you can find more Brush by Brandy on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, and my website at brushbybrandy.com.